Hello, everybody. Levi Clay here, and I would like to welcome you to the return of Mandates with Guitar Greats. And boy, do I have a special one for you today. You guys who've been watching my channel for a long time will know that there are so many aspects of music that I'm passionate about. I'm passionate about rock music. I'm passionate about country music. I'm passionate about jazz music. But most of all, I'm passionate about education. And one of the leading forces in the reason for my passion about education was my discovery of Hot Licks videos when I was about 14 years old. And it's a real pleasure to be able to welcome the creator, the man behind, the genius behind, we should say, Hot Licks, Mr. Arlen Roth. How's it going, Arlen?
It's going good. Going good. Nice to see you, Levi.
You've had one hell of a career. It really is astonishing the impact that you've had. And you're probably one of those, as people are going to discover, one of those classic, unknown greats of the instrument. Like your impact is mega, but it often goes unappreciated. Yeah, and there are so many guys in the education field that are that way.
I guess so. I mean, I've always maintained it all at the same time, because like when I started Hot Licks, I was already touring for many years with artists like, John Prine and Phoebe Snow and people like that. And I was also involved in my own personal career. I have 21 albums now. I'm actually doing my 22nd album this summer here in the States. So, I've always enjoyed keeping it all, balancing at one time and doing the books, which started very young for me, and also doing the stuff like my column in Guitar Player magazine, things like that, which later turned into a book as well. But the education. But what I felt was that I would be able to maintain it all, and at least, everybody will find out about you sooner or later. But with me, they found out me, through different avenues.
Yeah, sure.
So, while at the same time making a living.
Yeah, well, that's always the nice part, right?
Yeah, I had to, but I was so young when I first started, I wasn't even thinking of money being part of music,
No, of course. Yeah, you mentioned some of the people that you've worked with, played with. Your career is extensive. You toured with people. You were out with the Bee Gees at one point, right?
Yeah, the summer of 1974.
That's quite a big...
The pre-jive talking Bee Gees. What happened was I was in the opening act.
Right.
And they saw that I had a pedal steel guitar. And the guitar player for them, Alan Kendall, quickly became a fan of mine. He's like, wow, we're hanging out. And he said to the Bee Gees, he said, look, you got to have Arlen play some steel on. So I played on like Massachusetts.
Right.
Which was great because they were big crowds, like 18,000 people, And I remember one night I was so nervous. I had this white suit that I bought with a red shirt underneath it. The red shirt was bleeding in my armpits. I had like 2 red circles. And there's like girls in the front row going, he's nervous. He's nervous. I'll never forget that. I remember everything so well. But I even remember some of those crazy moments too. But it was great playing with them. That was a Canadian tour.
Right.
That was from, we took a ferry overnight from Maine to Nova Scotia.
Right.
And I got very sick on that ferry. I tried to play table tennis while it was like backing in and turning around, and that got me really sick. But, but it was beautiful going across Canada. We had a bus. The Bee Gees were like flying around in their Lear jets, but we had I'm on the bus with 25 other musicians.
Right.
All who were in the Bee Gees orchestra.
Right. Okay.
Kind of crazy.
That's really, really cool. And I mean, outside of the touring thing and the playing live, you've also had an extensive career as a session guy, right?
Sure. Yeah.
I'd be really. I'll kind of call you out on something you said there. You said you have a great memory for these things and you remember all of these great things. I'd really love to hear if there are any kind of memorable sessions or maybe even sessions that you played on that people might not be aware about. Anything that jumps out to you as being particularly fun?
Well, there were lots of great sessions. The hard thing in the beginning was people were calling me because they would see me play live, maybe in a club in Woodstock or a restaurant in Manhattan. And these producers or people would call me. And I'd be like, oh, this is so exciting. It's great. So I'd go and start doing these sessions. But at that time, it was so early. In New York, man, they didn't know how to record a guitar.
Right.
They didn't know how to get good sound on a guitar. And they also didn't understand that what they saw in me organically was not what they were going to get when they put all this music in front of me. Number one, I don't read music, right, at all. I know how to write it because I forced myself to understand that to write books. I wasn't going to tell the publisher, oh, by the way, I don't know about music. No, I understood music. And of course, theoretically, I understand music. But they put down, like 4 feet across of music for me to play, and I'm like playing lap steel or something. Or I have to look at the lap steel, or the pedal steel, whatever plus guitar, of course. The old adage, if you know how to shut up a guitar player, put some music in front of them.
If you're looking to take your guitar practice to the next level, then check out guidedpracticeroutines.com. We have over 100 hours of full instructional videos and practice routines, so we can practice together and progress faster. Now, these all come with full sound slice integration and Guitar Pro downloads. You'll also have access to my entire YouTube archive of transcriptions. So check out the link in the description and be the first to know when we go live.
So that was happening to me a lot, and some of the sessions were unbelievably grinding because of that. Like some film score things.
I can imagine they're particularly taxing.
Like time's money and money's time, and all that stuff. Oh, are we going to have to deal with the Hawaiian guitar? I'm like, oh my God. And all these people playing double bass, they look at me like, poor guy with his little tweed amp and his little tweed guitar case. I'm like, get me out of here, But so some of that stuff was really rough. And a lot of the early sessions, John Simon, who was a producer, is still around, and he produced the band, the first 2 albums for the band.
Yep.
And he started calling me right away for sessions. He heard me play in Woodstock. There was a restaurant there called the Joyous Lake. And people would come up. I jump up on stage. I was 17. And there's Harvey Brooks. There's Rick Danko of the band. There's Levi Helm. There's, a whole assortment of great people, all at least 20 to 30 years older than me, But I'd go up there and just blow people away because they never heard apparently, they never heard anybody play like me with all that string bending and all the innovative stuff for that time, so, and my slide work and everything else. So I was kind of like, I'd get up there, I'd be like living outside of my body in terms of how I would be interpreting. And at the same time, I was really learning at a breakneck speed. Because I'm like, oh, I'm here in Woodstock. And these people are people who I have their records, and even some of the folks, Anyway, they loved my playing, so I started getting called John Simon. And that first session, I had just torn my ankle because I was playing basketball with the band that I was going to be doing that Bee Gee tour with.
Right.
And then I come home with my foot wrapped, and they're carrying me around and like, oh, you just got a call to play at RCA Records for this album by John Simon. I'm like, oh no. And I had to do it. I'm not going to pass that up because maybe this will be that golden opportunity. So sure enough, my father took me down to Manhattan, drove me down, and all the musicians were carrying me around to go to the bathroom, go here, go there. It was really pretty funny. But it was like it was all cut live. It was a live session with a full orchestra, like some great musicians.
Yeah.
I didn't like the music that much, but that's another story, And I didn't like my guitar sound, a little chinky. It had nothing to do with what I was giving them.
Mm-hmm.
I was giving them like a really, really top-notch. I've got my 54 Strat, and I've got, a 65 deluxe reverb, a Fender, and it's just coming through like a little thin nothing. I'm like, what's going on here? But that, unfortunately, that was the way things sounded in New York a lot until you occasionally came across an engineer that really understood. Like I remember one time I was recording with a singer named Tony Bird, who was a white African singer, who I played with for many years. He was great. We did about 2 or 3 albums together. And I'm in the session, and all of a sudden I'm saying, wow, the guitar sounds fantastic. And the engineer was this woman, Leanne Unger. And I said to her, what a sound you're getting. Not that thin little chink chink that I always get. She said, that's because you're giving me such a great sound. I said, okay, now me and an engineer finally were on the same viewpoint,
Yeah.
So that was kind of a memorable thing for me, because that was the first time I felt like what I heard on the record was what I sounded like in the studio.
Sure. And this is around what sort of year are we talking there?
Well, that I think is around 76.
Okay. So that's, I think I've tried to do the math on this, and Wikipedia is the only place I could get this information on. It said that you were 21 when your first book was released, which I think puts it around 73. So this is after Slide Guitar had come out. I wrote
Slide Guitar when I was 19.
Right.
But didn't come out till the 20. I guess I was 21.
Yeah.
But at that time I was writing 3 books. I had Nashville Guitar, which was the first book to use a lot of notation innovations that I came up with. Part of it because really I didn't read music.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, well, how am I going to make this more understandable to me as a guitar player?
Yeah.
I started doing a lot of notational things, particularly in the tablature, that described more of what I was trying to get across. Like bend a string, how far am I bending that string? Things like that. What happens when I bend 2 strings and one's going 2 frets and one's going 1 fret?
Yeah.
The old books would just say slur.
Yeah.
Slur. Thank you very much. I'm going to slur. But I and so of course I brought that up above the tablature in the music as well.
Yeah.
So that was some stuff so that was for Nashville Guitar. But Slide Guitar and Blues Guitar were also part of that 3-book deal that I got.
Well,
I got that deal when I was only 19.
It's just so you're that kind of era. You're a really interesting point in the publication of educational material, because the main reason this interview came up was I was talking to my friend Fred, who's working on a documentary style thing on the history of tablature for guitarists, and he's been really into this idea of what was the first example of modern tablature being used for guitar, and he is very much of the opinion that you might have been the first guy in a major publication to
I think I was, because again, I wasn't going to tell my publisher, which was Music Sales Corporation. I was going to tell them I don't read music. I figured I'd lose God forbid, the $150 they were giving me. I remember they said at the end of it, and what are you going to do with the money? I'm like, I'll put it in my piggy bank. I was so young, they're asking me, what am I going to do with the money?
Yeah.
The $150. Luckily, that book sold like crazy.
Sure.
When I do gigs now, people present me with the book to autograph it, and it's like a well-worn dollar bill that's been through like 100 years of use. I'm like, wow, I love seeing that, of course. But it was. I couldn't find anything anywhere else that was describing what I needed to do, because the uniqueness of the style I was trying to teach, particularly in Nashville Guitar, it was all about my pedal steel licks and everything.
Yeah.
Nobody had ever notated that stuff, let alone even taught it, So I was doing a lot of that, and I would, here's 7 gets bent to 9. In parenthesis, 7 is sounding like 9. Or the A is sounding like a B. I just couldn't find anything that satisfied me when I looked at other sheet music that would would describe that clearly. So I adapted that and just figured, okay, what's tablature anyway? It's kind of an adaptation of notes. So I'm just going to do it my way.
Yeah. I would assume that you were you playing pedal steel as well at that point, or did you pick up
Yes.
pedal steel later? Yeah. Okay.
No, I started playing pedal steel around 68.
Okay.
Which in New York City, like no one had ever seen one.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, like I was at this Italian bar in the Bronx. I was playing with this really bad band, and it was like my interim bad period. But I was playing music because I needed to keep playing music.
Sure.
So this big guy comes up to me in a break. He goes, "You know that little doo-doodly-doo you play on the organ? That doo-doodly-doo on the organ? Can you play that for me and my friends?" I said, "I hate to tell you this, but it's not an organ.
It's an organ.
Called a pedal steel guitar." He goes, "Don't get fresh with me. Don't get fresh with me. That's an organ. That's an organ." I'm like, okay. I mean, thank you. I'll make that $20 tonight. But, it's like he sees, but I still don't know what the doo-doodly-doo he wanted was. But I guess that's his way of saying what the pedal steel sounded like.
Yeah. I ask about the steel because I'm a big pedal steel fan myself. I have one, and
great.
it's a long time since I've tried playing it. It's a nightmare to play well, of course. And when I think of me dabbling in the pedal steel, that question for myself popped up of, well, what's the deal when you look at a great player like, of course, Buddy Emmons, someone like Buddy Emmons. You can't, even if I sit and transcribe Buddy's music for people, you can't transcribe pedal steel music for pedal steel guitarists. It needs its own form of notation, and I very much am of the opinion that the guitar is that. This week I've been transcribing some Pat Metheny, and Pat's I'm using his from his new record Moondial, and he's using his patented baritone tuning that he does, where he has the B and the E, and then the middle two strings are the A and the D, but they're an octave higher than they should be. So you get these beautiful chord clusters when all of your voicings are technically the same, but anything on those middle two strings will be an octave higher. And it's like when you say to a notation purist, if I notate this for you, you're never going to be able to decipher it on your instrument. You just won't have any idea how to do it. So tablature seems like such an obvious, an important thing for guitarists. But I'd be really interested.
Yeah.
I'm just interested to hear what was a publisher's kind of initial response to the idea of doing something so fresh, something that hadn't been done before.
They had no bad reaction. I mean, it was totally.
Really?
I remember explaining it to them, and I remember there was one guy who was really kind of an older codger there, who was very strict about all that stuff. And I was trying to explain to him, like, listen, don't worry. This is what I'm doing. This is something, the most of the people up there were very supportive of me.
Mm-hmm.
Because they saw I'm a young kid. I would come up and I'd play for them, and I'd entertain their sales meetings. They'd be like, "Oh man, that slide guitar, that's a winner. That's a winner."
Well, and they only had to pay you $150.
Right. And that was for the book. Yeah, right. I think I got another 150 when it came out. But they were, really very much behind me. But I do remember I had one meeting with the hardcore guy who was about the notation. And I just tried to explain to him, look, don't worry, this is what I'm doing. I showed it to him, and I guess he was all for it, But it's very important knowing the instrument that you're reading for, that you're translating for, or transcribing. Like, for example, I remember when I was first with Guitar Player magazine, and I did this one thing where there's this one Evatone sheet I did, the little records that came with it. And people are always clamoring, wanting to buy just that sheet because I played some great stuff on it.
Yeah.
And I had a slide piece on there too, which was an E tuning. Who was doing that transcribing at that time for the guitar? Steve Vai.
Right.
Steve Vai didn't even realize, here I am playing things in full harmony. He didn't realize I was in E tuning. So we transcribed it verbatim, like as if I was jumping all over the guitar. And when we were working on Crossroads together, I made fun of him. I said, you didn't understand. You didn't hear that I was playing in E tuning.
Yeah.
But you're hearing all these harmonies. I wasn't playing one note at a time. Sometimes I do, but one of the great advantages of those open tunings is you have chord things. So that was pretty funny. But yeah, I'm like, no, it even made it to the final when the Guitar Player magazine came out, he had all of it transcribed wrong. The notes were right, but not the positions.
Yeah, which is it's kind of unique to the guitar, isn't it? The kind of the tablature aspect of things. If I'm doing a transcribing job for somebody and they want to play a violin piece, never has a violinist said to me, "Can you tell me how that's fingered?" But guitar players, they need that. It's like, where is this played on the instrument? And you could put all of that in notation, but it's just too much ink on the page.
It's too much. Yeah, exactly. Too much ink on the page. That's another good title for an album or for a book.
Yeah.
That's going to be my life story book. Too much ink on the page.
Yeah.
But that was, it's funny to be on that level of stuff when you're at the same time you're getting out there as a performer. And at the same time, me not taking lessons, I just learned by myself.
Sure.
So I had to put two and two together. Like I'd be at a session and they'd be like E flat 9 plus 6 or I'm like, well, I know what a 9th is and I know what a 6 is.
Yeah.
So there it is, you know. And most of the time they don't even want you to play that full chord.
Yeah.
But I needed to know, I was so tuned into what those sounds were. I wasn't like some heavy duty jazz musician or super reader, or I had started with a few lessons on classical when I was like 9, but that was it, and then when I bought an electric guitar, my teacher threw me out. She said, "That's a blight. You can't play an electric guitar." Okay.
You had the last laugh on that one though.
I guess, yeah. But she was very nice too.
Yeah, I guess actually that kind of ties in really nicely with the Crossroads film. That's the general idea in there as well. Ralph, you're supposed to stick to the classical, but no, sometimes the electric is the thing that speaks to us.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that was a lot of those things were my ideas to throw into the script. There were things like that because when Ralph discovered that I started as a classical player and then moved into slide and blues and all that he wanted that to be there. But in the movie, they made the classical playing so over the top. And I said, no, he should sound like a beginning classical player.
Sure.
Not a master, but because they used Bill Cannengeiser of the LA Guitar Quartet, played all that stuff. And he was a great friend of mine. And he actually did 2 videos for me for Hot Licks.
He did, yeah.
After I did that film. But it was too much of a gulf between that classical. But, they're doing it for the movie and all that. I used to do it all the time. I would play a blues riff at the end of a classical piece or, something like that, just as a goof. Fun. So that, all that kind of stuff happened in the movie. Like there's one, you may know the story, but like in the film, you're familiar with the film.
Oh yeah, I love the film. Yeah.
Well, that time when he walks into a club.
Yeah.
And he's like the first white guy that's ever been there. And those guys are, you got some, nerve coming in here. Well, that was what happened to me the week before in Mississippi. I went into this club and I played with these old-time blues black guys who were phenomenal. But they were really giving me a rough time.
Yeah.
Like, Mr. Guitar Player, we know you're feeling good. But when he coughs and when he turns around, then you switch chord. Oh, okay. But anyway, Ralph, whatever it was. But Ralph was there with his little tape recorder.
Right.
And he said, I want that in the movie. Arlen, what happened with Arlen just there. Because it was like a reverse, racism kind of thing. And it was great. It gave it more substance.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's what was really, really happening when we were in Mississippi.
I'll always be fond of that film. I vividly, obviously, people are going to talk about Steve's appearance in the film, but obviously I'm not sure if it was something that you'd written or maybe something that Ry Cooder had written. But I always remember the beautiful piece that Ralph is playing when he's in the hotel room. Right before there's sort of it's where the emotional break happens in the film, and he's just sat on a bed playing some blues guitar, slide guitar, and it's just very very impactful.
Yeah, with the pig nose amp that suddenly has vibrato.
You really do remember these things.
Oh, of course. Well, look, my job was to make sure all that was authentic.
Sure.
In the movie. To this day, anytime I see a film with us playing of any kind of instrument, I'm highly critical.
Yeah.
You know. But well, Ralph was great because he took so many lessons with me, and we worked with the script, and then the script kept changing, you know. But once he had a feel for what was going on the guitar, he never played any of it.
Right.
He wanted to. I said, he's not going to become that great, that quickly. So I worked with him for 2 months, 4 days a week, 2 hours a day. I would drive out to Long Island, New York. I even knew which toll changer on one of the bridges. I could throw a quarter in really hard and make it feel like $1, but it was only 25 cents. I even knew all the toll things,
Yeah.
But it was great working with Ralph, and he had all my guitars all over his room. He was still living with his parents, and which was a weird scene actually. But I got him just good enough to fake it. And of course, the faster the playing, the easier that is to fake.
Sure.
I'm making sure that he's getting the right vibrato, right positioning. I couldn't get him to change the slide off of his middle finger. I said, no, you're not. Don't play it. It's got to be the pinky or at least the ring finger. He just couldn't handle it otherwise. So I still have those things like in my gig bag. Like the slides that we used in Crossroads and things like that. One gig bag was stolen. It had a bunch of stuff in it, but I still have all that memorabilia, from the movie.
Yeah, that's super cool. This is really an aside for people watching, but for any of you guys watching this who did enjoy Crossroads, I recently went to the cinema to catch Michael B. Jordan's new film Sinners, and it's a crossroads, if you like. It's a mix of Crossroads and Quentin Tarantino's From Dusk Till Dawn. It's very much, it's a black exploitation, deep South 1930s, but it's a love letter to music. There's some beautiful blues guitar in there. Buddy Guy appears at the end of it. Highly recommend it if anyone wants to go check it out. It's
I gotta check that out. Sure.
Beautiful soundtrack to it. Lots of blues, but there's a kind of there's vampires in it, so there's a what's the word I'm looking for? Like a supernatural element to it, and because of that, they're playing on the spirit of music and how important music is, and how the great musicians can channel the music of the past and the future. And honestly, it's a great soundtrack to that film. So
what's it called again?
It's called Sinners.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, great film.
Yeah, let's check that out.
I certainly enjoyed it. Anyway, so all right, let's talk Hot Licks then. So prior to recording videos, you were doing cassettes, right?
Yeah, audio tapes from 79 to 84.
Yeah.
And I recorded a lot. I mean, must have done about 150 audio cassettes. And they were good. It's obviously having to over describe stuff, but I'll never forget the time when all of a sudden one day, actually I was giving lessons to all people to Paul Simon.
Right.
Paul Simon up by Broadway. I come home. I was living there with my wife to be, Deborah, and I come up and she's like in pajamas, and there's Dave Edmunds and Mickey G. Dave Edmunds was apparently in New York, and I was a big Dave Edmunds fan, but I didn't realize that he was a big Arlen Roth fan. And they're carrying the cassettes up from the postman, because it was a 4-story walk-up. And they're like, "Oh, we didn't know this was your home. We thought it was a store, Hot Licks in New York, But then we hung out, and then they had me sit in that night at a club in the city. at the Ritz Theater, which was great. And ever since then, me and Edmonds had become friends. And I hung out with him in England. You know, I was there,
Yeah.
and stuff, and we were even in the studio together. But that was amazing. I said, and they're like, "Oh no, this is getting big everywhere." So, like, I actually toured just behind the success of Hot Licks. Japan, England, Scotland, you know, all of Canada. I mean, all over the place. But it was the popularity of those tapes that brought me there.
Yeah.
So I would give these big clinics and I'd put on a performance. It was like all inclusive stuff, you know.
Well, and I guess the thing I'm most grateful for of everything that you've done is it would have been easy for you to have done the Hot Licks thing and just made it about yourself. You know, only your videos.
Yeah, right.
This is my way of just promoting the things that I do. And you made a ton of great videos, really great material, stuff that people still enjoy to this day. But you branched out and worked with so many other musicians. And I'm of the opinion that if it wasn't for Hot Licks doing, you know, Scotty Anderson, one of my favorite players.
Sure.
And I've got to know Scotty over the years and I've done my best to promote him. But if you hadn't done those Hot Licks videos, or sorry, just that one Hot Licks video with Scotty would have disappeared. And he almost has disappeared.
You know what it was? I was, well, of course, being very entrepreneurial.
Yeah.
I met Scotty at a NAMM show, and they were like, these guys from Yamaha, because I also endorsed Yamaha after my Japan tour. They're like, oh, then you got to hear this guy. You got to hear this guy. And right away, we hit it off.
Yeah.
And I said, listen, everybody deserves to hear him.
Yeah.
And he deserves to be more known. You know, but I used myself in the beginning as a guinea pig. But that very first day of sessions that I did for video, John Entwistle was there.
Yep.
I had John Entwistle doing the basic, and he was so forthcoming. And so some of the musicians were really liking the idea. You know, some of them it was hard to get. It took me about 5 years to get Buddy Guy. It took me about 7 years to get James Burton. You know, but I was persevering, and I wouldn't stop. That competitive edge I had when I started as a guitar player was also what I was using in trying to sign people.
Sure.
You know, and of course, when I would do a tour like Simon and Garfunkel or something like that, I'd sign half the band, you know, to do videos. Some of them took the advances and never even did the tape. You know, like Ayrton Moreira.
Musicians.
Ayrton Moreira and Jack Bruce.
Right.
Jack Bruce took the money and never did the tape. He was difficult to work with, let me tell you. But it was always about everybody.
Sure.
And I didn't want people to know it was my company. Like, I'd take out an ad, say it was like 7 people in the ad. I was just one of the people.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's the highest compliment I could have, is to be alongside Entwistle and Steve Morse and Eric Johnson and whatever.
Yeah.
Guys would do a video for me. They'd like, I didn't know this was your company. I'm like, that's the way I want it.
Yeah, sure.
Sort of like, it'll eventually people will know.
Yeah.
Because I put out like 40 and other people put out 2, you know what I mean? But because I could always just bang one out. Yeah. But that was a smart sort of business model for me, to just be sort of clandestine and just be behind the scenes. And of course, sometimes you'd see me on the video, like I'm there with Mick Taylor. I was there with John Entwistle. Some of the guys that were really frightened sitting there doing that, which I couldn't imagine.
Sure.
I go on camera, I'm like Mr. Showbiz. Yeah. But other people, I needed to be able to pull stuff out of them.
Yeah.
So on some of those things, I had to actually be jamming with them.
Yeah.
And that of course was a joy in and of itself, because Mick was such a great guy, and John Entwistle was so great.
Yep.
You know, just having this relationship, give and take relationship with these kind of musicians at the very core of what they were about. Most of them had never sat down and really talked about what made them who they are.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah.
So I love doing that.
Yeah, and they're all just timeless videos. They really are. Like, I wouldn't be where I am today I was a young rock guitar player, and I discovered Brent Mason through Nashville Chops and Western Swing. And, you know, I've gone on to carve out a niche in country music for myself. And I mean, actually,
Sure.
if I lower this, you'll see a Gibson Howard Roberts Fusion back there. And I wanted one of those for 15 years, because the moment he picked that up in that video and I heard him play, well, I'd never heard anything like that before. And I wanted one of those guitars.
Howard Roberts was not with me.
No, but Brent played one of those at the end of the video.
Oh, right. That's why Brent was great. Brent was great. Brent, you know, ended up playing on the Telemasters album with me. And we had a lot of fun with that, too, because I actually gave him the hardest piece on the whole album, because I know he would just, you know, come up with stuff really quick.
It'd be fine.
He was great. He was kind of annoyed in the beginning, but he was just being his session self.
Yeah.
You know, I think it took him about a half hour before he finally made eye contact with me.
I'm going to lift up another guitar and move the conversation on to my favorite of all of the guys you worked with. One of my all-time heroes. You'll know this as soon as I pull this up.
Oh, Danny.
Yeah. Danny is still, now when people ask me, who's your favorite guitar player? Like, without question, I say Danny. And again, without the videos that you produced with Danny, I don't think that his musical legacy would really, he's still one of those great unknowns, you know, but those videos.
Yeah, they like to say that. I mean, Danny was so great, and to work with him and also to personally become good friends, you know, that to me was the real kicker, because we would talk late into the night on the phone, all kinds of crazy personal, family, whatever it was, stuff, you know. And when he saw me with my children, that's when he really understood the whole picture.
Yeah.
But I was at his house down in Maryland, you know, on his farm. I was driving from Florida to there, up to here with my wife and kids. And I said, look, we were at Disney World and all that, Disney World. And I said, look, we got to stop and see Danny. You know, we got to visit Danny. And he has a great sense of humor, brilliant player, of course. I mean, you know, and the way he played and the way we worked together, when we did that song, when we did Tequila in the studio, he didn't want me to leave the place until he got it mixed and ready and made everything right. He must have stayed 4 hours, 5 hours after we recorded, you know.
Yeah.
And then he still had to drive home for another 2 hours. But he was just, you know, like it was, and I felt like this guy's really my friend.
Yeah.
He's doing this for me, not just another record, you know. And just the greatest, you know. And of course we did that Conan O'Brien TV show in Manhattan, and he did 2 videos for me. And you know, we just always had a great time.
Yeah.
Always had a blast, really.
I have always wondered, though, why when he was filming Strictly Rhythm Guitar, why you didn't come in and say, Danny, we need to change this guitar. You can't have that.
I know. Well, he, you know, if you notice in the film, in the video, he quickly throws in, and this could be yours for only $30 million. He wanted to sell it. He wanted to make it so legendary. And ironically, I did sell it.
Oh, okay.
I did sell it to a friend of mine who wanted that guitar in the worst way, you know, the double neck.
Yeah.
He wanted that the mother of toilet seat double neck. But and even the amp too. That same fellow bought his old Bassman as well. But Danny was doing it because he hated that guitar.
Oh, really? Okay.
Oh yeah, he's like, man, is that ugly? Like, you know, but he felt honored that they made something like that for him. But what it was sold for was probably what it would just cost to have a new one made now.
Yeah.
You know? But that was I thought the coolest video ever.
Yeah.
Because it was so loose. It was so loose and natural, you know.
I guess that for me, it's the best way. It's it's practical, it's pragmatic, it's
Yeah.
it's a real working musician's approach to playing music, rather than, I'm sure, Berkeley School of Music was a thing there during that period. You could have gone off and studied, but I felt that with all of the hot licks, I'm looking at a list of some of my favorite videos, like the Joe Pass ones, solo jazz guitar with Joe Pass, Jimmy Bruno, the no nonsense jazz guitar, great
Oh,
video.
I love him. I love
Yeah,
him.
the Emily Remler videos,
Yeah, two
fantastic.
of them.
You worked with Tal Farlow.
Oh, Tal, what a great man.
Yeah, and
He did audio tapes for me before.
really,
Video. Oh, yeah. That's the one where he called himself Carolina Slim. He's like, hi, this is Carolina Slim. I was such a sweet man. Oh, my God. And what a brilliant player,
yeah,
But, yeah, that was all. I just really liked when I got to work with artists who were encouraging about the whole process.
yeah,
Because a lot of people, like I was going to do one with Roy Buchanan. Roy Buchanan would order videos. I'd hear him on the machine
right.
and send that to Judy Buchanan. I want speed, accuracy, and articulation with Vinnie Moore,
Any more?
and send that to Judy Buchanan. And I'm listening through the wall. I hear it coming in, but then his manager was like, "No, don't give up your secrets." I'm like, "Come!" I said, "How about he makes some money from it?"
Yeah, yeah,
Nobody's going to turn into another Roy Buchanan. I didn't think I was going to create another Arlen Roth.
yeah.
We're all unique in our own way. We're musicians. We have our own fingerprints.
And you're giving away your secrets just by playing music.
Exactly. And the person who's really listening and really seeking that out is going to pick that up.
Yeah.
It's just the way we all learned.
Yeah.
I learned just by listening to something. Say, "Oh, I know what that was." Now, if I know where he is, I'm going to figure out the rest of it.
Yeah, and I mean,
yeah,
giving away secrets. Like, just thinking of every great video that you put out with hot licks. I sat and studied many of them, and I don't sound like any of those. No matter the amount of time, like I could have spent 500 hours with the Eric Johnson videos, and I'm never going to sound like Eric Johnson. So,
and
it's a shame
Eric
to hear
Johnson,
that.
when I did that first Eric Johnson video, he didn't even have a record out yet.
Yeah,
I got in there quickly because I did a gig in New York City with him and Mick Taylor. I was playing with Mick Taylor. Mick Taylor wanted me to come and play. It's the first time Mick had played in New York since the Stones, So I'm on stage with Mick, and then Eric Johnson was. A lot of people were there to see him because Eric opened the show.
Mm.
And right away, I'm backstage with Eric. We knew each other. We knew what we each did, and we hit it right off. And then Eric was doing his video. I did that video in Austin, in Austin, Texas. And we did that same year. I guess it was might have been 89 or something like that, 88. And then I did his second one after that, also in Austin. But, yeah, great experiences. Robin Trower. So much of it had to do with meeting these people.
Mm.
Like I remember when I met Robin Trower, I went to a gig he was doing about 50 miles from here. And he's talking to me on the phone. "Oh, I'm not going to do a video. If Eric Clapton doesn't have one, I'm not going to do it." Right away, it was an ego thing. The minute I walk in, he goes, "That's it. I'm doing it. I'm doing it." I'm like, what about me walking in this room just changed his mind, He said, no advance. I don't need any advance. Like, really? And I remember I was there with with the Procol Harum guys.
Yeah.
Were there to see him. And then I was telling him stories about my band when I was 17 years old was doing all these Procol Harum songs. So he right away told all those guys. So that personal connection, that had so much to do with me and those musicians, them realizing I'm just one of them.
Yeah.
I'm not some corporate guy signing them. I'm involved in this and for the love of the music.
Absolutely.
And their music,
Yeah.
So that has so much to do with it. But in the beginning, it was really hard to convince people. Then it became a thing. Oh yeah, now I'm going to do a video for Arlen Roth, for Hot Licks. And then it became part and parcel of what they expected to do within their careers.
Yeah,
But
sure.
at first it was very, like, no, we're not going to do that, or they were scared.
You mentioned not being able to get Roy Buchanan. Is there anyone else that pops up in your mind that you tried to get and you just couldn't make it happen, or somebody that you maybe wish that you'd put some effort into getting but didn't?
Yeah, well, definitely Roy Buchanan. There were a few other people I wish I had been able to get in, because I had a lot of the jazz guys were kind of elderly.
Yeah.
Like Charlie Bird and Tal Farlow, and it was very South Salvador. It was very important to me to like get those people, and it didn't matter what genre they were. I mean, people would come up to my booth when I was selling stuff. I had like 100 videos, and they'd go, "Now, what don't I have?"
Yeah, yeah.
Because they were collecting everything.
Yeah.
Heavy metal guys were buying classical.
That's why I got the Brent Mason.
Yeah, it's all about that, about diversifying and learning as much as you can. And that's what I loved, because I knew that there'd be somebody in the middle of the stream buying Joe Pass, but Eric Johnson was here, and like different speeds in the same stream.
Yeah.
And that's how I love to look at it. But I wanted to have as much for people as possible. I mean, I would do like 12 to 15 videos a year, which was a lot. I wish I had done Roy Nichols.
Oh, yeah.
Albert Lee. Albert Lee went to Starlix.
Starlix, yeah.
Before, even though Albert and I knew each other so well.
Yeah.
He was like, even one time I saw him giving a clinic, and he was like, "I'm sorry, Arlen." Like, he was like talking like this. "I did it for Starlix. Sorry, Arlen." He was already apologizing. And, we tried to get Clapton to do something, offering unbelievable amounts of money. And Jeff Beck, who had become a good friend of mine, and he was a big fan of my playing. He knew more about stuff on my albums than I did on his album. Like when I ran into him, Seymour Duncan introduced me to him at a NAMM show. And he's like, "What a change is going to come." Like he was going on about my first album.
Yeah.
I'm like, whoa. But anyway, so we became friends, but I had raised ungodly amounts of money for him. And it was right after my family was killed.
Yeah.
And I raised all that money, and then all of a sudden he pulled out of it. He pulled out of it the day before we were going to shoot. He insisted that it had to be at my house, because he went to visit me at my house after the accident happened.
Yeah.
He came with what's her name? The guitar, the girl with the long
Tal Wilkenfeld.
No. The guitar player.
Jennifer Batten.
Jennifer Batten.
Yeah.
They came together.
Yeah.
And I even showed Jeff my 38 Buick hot rod. He's like, no advance, just a hot rod. I'll just take the car. And we had a really good time, considering it was very solemn, very bad time.
Sure,
it was only about a week after the accident happened. But he said, I'll do it at your house. And we turned the whole place into a video studio. And then at the last second, he had to pull out with really no explanation.
That sucks.
So then I said, well, you know what? I called up other people. I did. Jimmy Bruno showed up. He did 2 tapes. I did country string bending. And I did my 6-tape A to Z acoustic, which was like a life story going on.
Yeah. I
hadn't even played, for a long time at that point. And that was pretty much it. So I even though it was all booked out for Jeff to do one video, I ended up doing 9, 10, 11, 6, 7, 8, 9 videos during that time.
Capitalized.
Because we had already paid the crew. We had already paid. All the windows were blacked out of my home, everything. And that's because Jeff wanted to do it there.
Yeah.
But sadly, it didn't happen, because I wish not only would that have been great and in the future, but that would have saved me at that time.
Yeah.
Because then I lost everything. But that was really going to save me financially and I knew that video was going to make about $2 million in the first day. I knew what these things were doing, how well they were doing, And I said, this is Jeff Beck, come on. And he said he was going to call it "It's All in the Hands." It's all in the hands. Not using a pick and all that. I was so looking forward to that.
Yeah.
But so that was a big regret. But it wasn't my miss. we had both played at Les Paul's birthday party in Manhattan, and that's when I made the offer to him. We were at the same table, and I made the offer to him. And by the time they called up to talk to me at home, the accident had happened.
Yeah.
So, but then Jeff came to visit. He was in America. He said, "Are you near Newburgh? Newburgh. We say Newburgh.
Yeah.
The airport." But he said Newburgh. And he was also visiting with, I think it was Jan Ackerman, somebody like that. But Jeff was such a wonderful guy.
It's really, and obviously we'll never get to ask him because he's obviously no longer with us. I think when you're younger and you're in business, you're taking calculated risks, but ultimately you never know if something's going to have been use of your time, and who could have known how influential the Hot Licks stuff would still be so many decades on. I wonder if, I like to think years later, Hot Licks is one of those things that Jeff would still have looked back on and gone, man, I wish I did that video. That would have been cool.
Absolutely. And it was, nothing that's being produced today has the same natural, organic quality that all those projects had. Things are much more, it's all about, it's just, read the notes, play the notes, blah, 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 lick number one, lick number two. But I had the real people, the real people. And that was the excitement of it. I mean, my God, when I did the Junior Wells harmonica video, I don't know if you've ever saw that.
I've not, no.
No, but somebody actually put the whole thing on YouTube.
Yeah.
And if you could just picture that and imagine what I went through to make that happen, unbelievable.
Yeah.
And
actually,
I mentioned it in another interview that's on, but I get him out of one hotel, get him into another hotel, get him to here, there, and then he's like, "Oh man, he's walking down, Broadway." He goes, "There used to be one over there. There was one over there," and this is like 10 o'clock in the morning. I said, "What, music stores?" Right? He goes, "No, liquor stores." I said, "You actually know where all the liquor stores were?" And then that was it. Just a pint of gin. Just give me a pint of gin all day long. Gin,
musicians.
Gin. I'm like, oh my God. And we would have funny conversations about Buddy Guy. And then I got to do Buddy in Chicago.
Yep.
It was fun, and he got me so drunk at his club that I walked home I don't know how I even walked home to my hotel, but because he gave me all this memorabilia and shirts, it all was gone. I lost it all just in the process of trying to meander to my hotel. But he's like, "Give him another one. Give him another." Just pointing to the glass, But I'm like, well, it's Buddy Guy. I got a drink. I mean, what can I do? He's my hero,
Yeah.
But he was, his producer, Tom Hambridge, produced 2 albums for me. He produced the Telemasters and also my Slide Guitar Summit, which was a wonderful project to do.
Yeah.
I got to do that with, Johnny Winter and Leroy Parnell and all these great players. David Lindley.
Yeah, and it's not to veer off onto another tangent because I don't want to take up too much more of your time, but you mentioned 21 albums. It's a wealth of music that people should go out there and listen to. And
here's my new one right here. Playing Out the String. That's a friend of mine from college. That's every guitar string he ever used. And he took a photograph of that, which I thought was a very fitting thing to have.
Yeah, so go and check that out. But before I give you the opportunity to tell people where they can find out more about you and what you're up to and your music, of course, just one last thing on the guitar education philosophy. You sort of hinted at it there about how you feel about modern education. I'm interested to know how you think that guitar instruction has changed and what's been lost or potentially gained in that evolution.
Well, I like to actually think that I've had something to do with that.
For sure.
with the idea of people being so open about giving, and showing what they're about, and it's become really the norm. But I think a lot of people, there's a lot of, it's just a little bit too much, too cold and too by rote and too, I can't even describe it. It's like I'll see somebody play some country lick that I taught 40 years ago, and I'll be like, they're acting like it's really something that unique, that special. But there are, of course, some great players. The problem that goes back to even when I started Hot Licks was that some people would try to play too fast and show off too much, and that would drive people crazy. They're like, "Well, I'm inspired by Eric Johnson's video, but I don't know if I can really catch what he's doing." Now, even in the new incarnation of my videos with Hal Leonard, who has my catalog, they're doing more high-tech stuff to it to like slow down certain things, and it's gotten better technically. I used to have my hands underneath a camera, and I'd be moving the tablature, and you see where I would get stuck or would like move, like I'm like, and go, start moving, So it was very primitive. We had to go through every stage of primitive development to understand how, all the stamps, just the stamps to mail everything all over the place.
Yeah. I
didn't know that I could buy stamps in such bulk. I didn't know that you could actually purchase a stamp machine. Like they had chung, chung, chung.
Yeah.
Then we had like a high-speed duplicator. This is before video.
Yep.
We would have high-speed duplication of the tapes, making 6 of them at a time, both sides, So all those kinds of things we had to learn as we went along, but it was really the best way. Plus, me and my wife, we got to have this wonderful excitement that we were creating something almost out of nothing.
Yeah.
I had $2,000 and I had my reputation. That was it. First ad was $1,500 a guitar player, and I bought a used tape recorder, across the street for $500.
Yeah,
and there was the 2,000. She thought I was crazy. That first month, we took in $18,000 of mail coming into our mailbox. Couldn't even hold it, and that was a time when Dave Edmunds showed up, and it was already popular in England. Of course, I had a good distributor in England.
Yeah.
Stephen McLucky, he was there. And I remember we went to him, and I did a whole bunch of clinics for him and shows there, and it was just marvelous,
Yeah.
It was really, I could actually write a book just on the Hot Licks experience.
Sure.
Just on the whole educational thing, what it was to deal with each one of those artists. Because I remember it all, And it was, each one was unique unto itself, So it's like this great memory bank. I'm glad that it's almost all of it is permanently documented in the form of those videos and audio tapes,
Yeah. Some of them I would say are lost to the VHS format. Some of those, some I'm sure Hal Leonard will never get round to digitizing.
They might, though. I mean, believe it or not, there have been some times where when the transfer went from Music Sales, a company that's based in England, I first brought my books, Music Sales, to them, to masters. Some masters were lost. And they've actually asked me just sometimes to find a VHS copy, and then they digitize that. So they could take the relatively poor quality of an old VHS tape and bring it up to a digital level. So I've had to do that with a couple of tapes, and I'm still waiting on certain ones coming out, like Lonnie Mack.
So you're still helping those guys with stuff?
Oh yeah, they turn me down when I tell them I'm ready to do more stuff, which I don't understand. I mean, I've got 50 artists right now that are willing to work with me again. I'm doing that. I don't understand. maybe they think they've got enough. I don't know. And my A to Z box set, has never been digitized. That's the one that I did in place of the day where Jeff Beck was going to do it. And Lonnie Mac, there's a couple more that haven't quite come out yet.
Yeah.
But they keep reassuring me that eventually they're all going to be out. So.
Okay. Okay. Well, as I said, I don't want to take up too much more of your time. So where can people go to find out more about you and everything you're up to?
Well, I've got my website, my standard kind of website thing, arlenroth.com. And I'm always typing away on Facebook and some stuff on Instagram too. But I like to keep updated on there because I have an enormous amount of people following me.
Of course.
I like to, these days, if you played a gig for 50 people and you put it on YouTube, all of a sudden 50,000 people are seeing it. So I love posting on YouTube. I love posting gigs, doing things like that. Hopefully, I'll be getting out there again, more performing again. I do any number of things. I do a lot of solo gigs, solo acoustic. I also have a band, and sometimes I'll just do it as a trio. It basically all depends on what we're getting paid.
Of course, yeah.
As to whether I can pay the band. But I love, I still love being a performer is still my number one favorite thing,
Yeah, and you're what, sorry, 72 now?
Yeah, 72. My God, I can't.
72 and still out gigging. That's fantastic.
Yeah, well, trying. I mean, I just had this heart surgery.
Right.
And that is taking me a while to come back from, and feeling like I could really put myself through all that stuff again, yeah, I'm trying to take it, just to do the gigs that really are good and really count.
Yeah.
Here, I'm hoping to do a UK tour. So there's some of my friends over there trying to put together for me in Wales and in Ireland, Scotland, England, all over.
There's a good scene over here. We could make that popular. We got some great guitar players here. Over here, you familiar with James Oliver?
Sure. Oh yeah.
Yeah. He's
Mr. Speed.
Yeah, he's
so fast.
He is so scarily fast. But he's
he's a telly
great
guy.
Great telly guy. Yeah.
Sure.
I'll be happy he got mentioned there.
And also, he's terrific. And I work with filed guitars, acoustic. I sort of I promote them and use those guitars. They're in the Lake Country, filed, FYLDE.
Okay.
I've been playing those guitars since early 70s. They brought one to me in New York, and I've recently become more familiar with them again and working at brilliant guitars, just wonderful.
Nice.
And so I love all that stuff. But so I'd love to go to the UK because it's just more of a little bit slower, more human environment for me. And I love the people there so much. And the playing, if I could ever get used to driving on the other side, maybe I could actually move there. It's not fun with a car collection, I'll be like, what am I going to do now?
Yeah.
But I'm like with Jeff Beck, I'm like, you got 15 cars. They're all the same car. Come on, Jeff. And that's when he was going to get my Buick,
Yeah.
We were just joking around about that. But, it's so much fun. Just knowing all these people, getting to know them at their inner core and at the musical side is the best thing. That to me is something that'll stay with me forever. That's one of the things why I'd want to do that book.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, if you're sat around and you can't play gigs, maybe set them right in that book. It's already got a name, too much ink on the page.
Sitting around and being miserable. But, yeah, you know what it is? I had so much success at a very young age.
Mm.
And with a lot of the stuff that I've been through, it's not quite the same now.
Mm.
It's hard. It's hard to get that same drive and energy up again. But, it's all, for me, it's still all about the music.
Of course.
It really is. That's how it started, with no money, and then you ended music and no money. That's it.
But
But yeah, no,
lots of love and affection from from people all around the world that really do appreciate everything that you've contributed
apparently, yeah,
to
apparently,
music
and
and education.
I love it. I love it. And remember I toured Australia too, and my God, I had crowds that you just couldn't believe.
Yeah,
2,000 people in Melbourne watching me give a guitar clinic.
yeah,
But they were smart because they had a big screen above me showing the close-ups, just like a Hot Licks video, And that was great. That was, I mean, and the people so appreciated it.
yeah,
But that's what I love to do, to communicate,
yeah.
get that give and take, and that's why people love the clinics with me too, because I'm up there teaching
Mm.
and telling the crazy stories, and things that they just love to hear. It stimulates them. They feel like they can do something too.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you so much. I really
Oh,
can't
my
thank you
pleasure.
enough for your time. It's been a real pleasure to
Sure.
talk to you, Arlen. Any closing messages for the lovely people watching?
You're all so lovely. That's what I love about you. No, I mean, I think I just think, well, I certainly hope that I can make it to the UK and
Yeah.
keep getting out there and performing, because that's the best thing for me.
Yeah.
And I want to do that. They even want to maybe have me back in Japan too, after my third time to Japan. But I would say just, thank God that anybody out there supports live music. You got to come out. Stop watching only these bands that are tribute bands. Jefferson Starship tribute. Oh, really? I can't wait. Really? Why does everybody get all hooked up into that? It's like, don't you want to hear live music? I mean, live music by the real artists.
Tell
There's
me
still a
about it.
lot of that out there,
I know. It's
But
the scene over here is not great for that. I'll be honest. Like we're
really,
going out and we're having to play, soul music. That's what we do with soul music and live it and love it. But trying to
yeah.
get a gig playing originals, we have plenty of original music, but no, that's people just want to hear the covers.
Oh, that's terrible. Yeah, I mean, in the old days, when I had to play in my dark period of really being with bad local bands, they at least let me do a couple of my own pieces. And then I was learning. I got to be a good player, even playing on all that lousy music they were playing. But still, you use it because that's what you're doing.
Yeah.
But they would let me do some of my original stuff, and that would get that at least out of me, and then I could play the other crap. But then, because I had already had the experience of being in Woodstock, the town of Woodstock, and playing with all these wonderful original artists. And then I had to go back to like playing Neil Young songs or whatever, I'm like, no. But, I always kept my eye on, if I kept improving, which I always was, just getting better and knowing that the music I'd be playing would be better someday.
Yeah.
That's so important to keep in mind. Don't get discouraged by all that stuff when you're in a small town or whatever. I just think that, and the competitiveness is good, but be competitive and be supportive of each other, because there's nothing better. Then the musical community starts to just grow around it. I love that when I was in Woodstock. I mean, you just drop by somebody's house, and next thing you know, other people are dropping by. And next thing you know, you're playing. Next thing you know, you're on somebody's album. And that's kind of like what Nashville is like too. Nashville, they have these. Let's pass the guitar, all that stuff. Nashville still has some of that flavor. There's just too many people there. I think every person there has a gig bag on their back. Whether they can play or not.
Yeah, gig bag on their back, and they all work in a coffee shop.
Yeah, exactly. But it's everybody has their own story to tell that way, and that's why you should just have to persevere, because it would be easy for me to say, look, with what I've been through, I don't want to do it anymore. Like I just can't handle it. But I'll try to do it on a more incidental, smaller level. You go into a town like Rochester, New York, and there's a little club there. Next thing you know, you got 150 people coming out to see you. You don't know where you're going to stay that night, but you don't know. You haven't found a hotel yet, but they're there and loving it, and they want to leave with some of your CDs. they want a part of you, you know,
Yes.
and you all get autograph it, and that just feels great. You know?
Yeah.
So the continuum, it's so important. And your legacy, you know, you got to realize no matter what you do, if you continue with it enough, you're going to have a legacy to leave. And that's what I am proud of. I'm proud that at least I got that. Because sometimes my daughter asks me things, and she's like, Dad, I can't believe that, you know, that you did this then. And I'm like, wow, my own daughter is still getting impressed. But I'm like, thank God, you know. And so that's a big part of it, the legacy, you know.
Yeah.
So,
well, I think that's a great way to end it. Don't get complacent. Keep practicing. Keep working towards your dreams. If you're a musician, you really have no other choice. You know what it's like to be a musician. Anyone listening to this, if it's who you are, nothing will stop you. You've got to keep doing it. Go play music. Have a great time. So thank you for that.
Yes, and play. Like I never tell people, make sure you practice. You know, I'm like, no, play. I said, I never practiced. I used to play 4 hours a day, dreaming up things, even at night, at my sleep. But never think of it as, well, practice just has a little bit of a negative connotation.
Yes.
And it means that you're always playing the same thing over and over again.
Sure.
When I pick up a guitar, I right away try to play something fresh. I make myself play something. I've got to impress myself with my playing. And that's very important too. Make new strides. Even if you're going to stumble a little bit, you're going to listen back to tapes that you did at gigs and say, when did I play that?
Yeah.
Well, because you're on a higher level of communication and of creativity. And that's the stuff that eventually really stays with you. You know?
For sure. And I mean, I know I keep saying I'll end it, but then I lift this up and like, that's when I listen to Danny, that's it. It sounds like somebody who's constantly playing right on the edge of what should be played and crossing it. And
the entire history of the guitar in 4 minutes. You know? That was Danny. He's like a musicologist.
Yeah.
The minute his guitar was in his hands, you know, it was so much fun. But I learned from him, you know, when I was in the studio with him when we were recording Tequila, I'm watching him. I say, oh my God, he's voicing 3 chords over that first chord, not just 1 or 2.
Yeah.
But he's got all these shapes going on, you know. And so that was such a pleasure. Because when I would do these hot licks things or something like Danny, I'm learning too.
Of course.
I'm learning from the best.
Yeah.
You know? So, well, it was great to be with you, Levi. Really terrific. And hopefully maybe we can see each other in the UK.
Yes, we'll do our best to make it happen. So thank you guys for watching. And one more time, thank Arlen Roth for his time. Go and check him out on Facebook. He's very active over there. And I'm sure you'll be able to engage with him. Let him know that you enjoyed this interview and that you'll go and see him on an upcoming show. Thank you all so much for watching. Hit that subscribe button, like, comment. I'm reading all of your comments below. I'll get back to every single one of you. Every single one of you. And if you have any requests, let me know. Much love. And I will see you for another video soon. Laters.
Thank you.